everyone. We are a little bit early, so feel free to grab yourself a cup of tea and some materials. We'll get started in a little while. Just make sure. So, my microphone is close. So what time is it? We are a little bit early, aren't we? I want to show you a technique called burnishing. So make sure you have some color pencils at hand and some drawing paper. If you want, you can make a little sketch beforehand. I'm going to draw one of these balloon dogs, which I think is a lot of fun. The photo is from Pinterest. I will just share my Pinterest page here. You can find the photo all the way at the top. Share it. So cannot type and talk at the same time. So just quickly type a message and then we'll get started. There we go. No welcome message. I am ready to get started. So I'm going to use my sketchbook. This is my C-Writer Writing sketchbook. I recently added something to the front, which I'm very excited about. I wanted to create a front page for this book for absolutely ages, and I was sort of putting it up. I'm sort of thinking of adding some watercolors to it as well. This ink is waterproof, so it should be okay. I sort of like it black and white as well, so I'm keeping it like this for now. Just that the white edges get a little bit grubby after a while. And I am going to draw in color pencils. So I have my coloring pencils here. I'm using this large box of Faber-Castell pencils, and I'm mostly going to draw in blue. And I wanted to show you a technique called burnishing. And burnishing is a technique that works really well for full colors, especially for like shiny areas. So this is why I picked a balloon. I think doing something that has a bit of lights and darks and a bit of shininess to it is absolutely perfect for burnishing. So that is why I wanted to do this. And I have already created a sketch. The sketch is quite simple. This is not a complicated animal to draw, a balloon animal. If you want, you can just make a round balloon, just a really simple one, because the session today is not about how to sketch a perfect animal. It's about how we're going to use our coloring pencils to do this burnishing. So I have started with this sketch, and I am just going to add in a few little highlights on the body of this picture, on the areas, because the dog is shiny, and I want to add in a few little highlights that I am going to remember to keep white. So let me do that. I'm just quickly checking if everything is working, if my sound is working, and it seems to be. So that is great. So I will put a clip on my book as well. There we go. I have a cup of tea here at hand. And then I'm ready to get started. Is anyone here yet? Still a little bit early. This is quite a slow process. It doesn't really matter so much if people come in a little bit later. So I also want to start making a little time-lapse video as well. So just quickly making sure that it all works. And there we are. So I am just going to outline a few places on here that are going to be staying white. So I'm using my pencil. This area here is white. Otherwise I might forget to leave that light. And I can always go back in with a white marker or white highlighter, gel pen. But I prefer just doing it from the start. There we go. Maybe a little highlight here. There's some lights in dark areas and other places as well, but adding in some highlights makes a world of difference. So I want to make sure I don't forget there. Little edge here. So, little sort of triangle, square sort of space here. There's a few other marks over there. And then a sort of square space here. There we go. So these are the main highlights that I want to leave in, that I'm going to keep sparkly white. And then I'm going to get started with a light color blue. So, and I need a sharpener, swell pencil sharpener. Here's one. There we go. So always work with nice sharp pencils. It makes a world of difference. So, and I'm really going to use blue colors today. I have my blue colors here. If you want to work in a different color, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to do it in blue, but the reference photo is in blue, so I might as well. There we go. Ready to get started. So I'm going to just start lightly. So burnishing is a technique where we increase the pressure on our pencils and make something much darker and more intense in color. But for now, we'll just start light. So I'm letting a base layer of light blue here on the lighter areas of the picture, but it's just a thin layer. We're just getting started, so don't feel like you have to go in really harsh straight away. So just have some fun with adding some light colors. And as I said, if you want the reference photo, it is from Pinterest and you can find it. The link to it in the chat. So a bit of blue there. Here's I'm focusing on those lightest areas. I can go in a little bit more precise in a moment. For now, this is just going to be base colors. So there we go. I notice a bit of lighter color blue here. So even though I'm only going to use blues, maybe some white at some point today, I see a lot of different color blues in here. So some really dark, deep dark blues that are almost black, some really light blues that are almost white, and anything in between. So if you've never drawn in color pencil before, it is a lovely material. I love drawing in color pencil. So, and burnishing is a technique that I personally don't use that often, but it's a very useful technique to know. I often keep my color pencils a little bit more soft and layered, but when you burnish, you really blend the colors and you create really intense colors. So that is something that we're going to work towards today, and I will show you how. And this reference picture is perfect for it because it is such a shiny object. Yeah, that really smooth effect that you get for burnishing is perfect for this. So if you're drawing along, grab yourself some color pencils. As I said, the reference photo is from Pinterest. You can find that on my Pinterest board all the way at the top. I added a link to it in the chat. The sketch is very simple. Don't worry about creating a sketch that is really detailed. So just zooming in a little bit. I especially picked a really simple shape, like this dog, because I want to focus on the technique more than on the sketching and creating a realistic animal. But if you, yeah, so you can also join in just making a round balloon. It's all about the technique today. So, I really love working in coloring pencils, and I think coloring pencils are sometimes a little bit underrated. People sometimes forget that they are like a really valid, like an absolutely valid choice of material for artists, and I really love adding them to other materials as well. I love drawing realistic with them. They work really well with pastel, actually with almost any medium they work well. Maybe not with oil painting, but with anything, like with loads of other materials, they work fantastic. Coloring pencils work well with markers, over soft pastels. They work well together over paint, over gouache or watercolor paint. They work really well over or together with the pen pastels, over if you do watercolor pencils, and then over it with normal coloring pencils. That works really, really well. So there's so many different uses for them. That yeah, I absolutely love them. You can use them to draw really, really realistic, or use them to add just a little bit of extra texture to an already sort of more rougher piece of art. I think they're just fantastic in that way. So I'm grabbing myself a darker color pencil, and I'm going over the darker areas, just adding another layer of color. So I'm just really looking at what do I see here. Maybe there's a bit of a point over there. Still keeping the pressure on my pencil fairly low. I don't want to go in too harsh quite yet. So I do notice sort of the outline of where the dark and where the light touches each other. So I'm just adding in some of those darker areas. So this whole area here at the front is a little bit darker. Make sure I leave those light areas light. So you can see some reflections in here. So I'm just taking my time for it. I'm just deciding where the light and where the dark areas are going to go. So all of this is just layering for now, no burnishing yet. So, make sure you don't forget to take a deep breath once in a while. So, and the thing with coloring pencils is that you just have to be quite patient when you use them. Every layer takes a bit of time. It's not sort of just quickly slap it on and you're finished. If you like really quick drawings, there's other materials that work better for that. You can make an underlayer painting first, but generally speaking, coloring pencils are a bit mindful and you need to be just a little bit more patient for those. So I recorded another podcast earlier today, and I had such a good time. The podcast was supposed to be only 1 hour, but we completely forgot the time and recorded for almost 2 hours in the end. I did feel a little bit guilty about it, because my podcast guest surely had lots of other things that she wanted to be doing. But it sometimes happens when you're drawing and you completely forget the time, right? So I'm just adding in some base colors here. Leaving those highlights free. So this is the darker blue. There we go. And I'm going to show you different ways of doing burnishing today. I'm not quite there yet. I need to have a little bit more of a layer of color on the paper first. I'm going to show you different techniques of burnishing. The first one is just doing it by hand, just really slowly layering up the color until we have that intensity of color that we're looking for. And then the second one is using a burnishing pencil to speed up the process a little bit. You don't need to have one of those, but I do, so I might as well just show you how it works. It's a little bit faster. We definitely can also achieve the same result without. So I want a slightly warmer tone of blue. Maybe this one. And that needs to be a bit sharper. So I'm adding a slightly warmer color to those colors that are already there. I want something a little bit more full color-wise. So slightly warmer tone blue. So I'm starting to add a little bit more pressure to my pencil, slowly and steadily. Using these different colored blues, blending them in to create this light tone. And this is what burnishing is. We're mixing up the colors to create quite a thick layer of color. I want a really light one as well. Let's see if I have a really light color blue. Maybe I'll just use this cream here for the edges. See? Slowly building up the color to create this really vibrant intensity of color. So what you do when you're burnishing is increasing the pressure on your colors, on your pencil, and by increasing the pressure, we close down all the little gaps, press down on the fibers, create a really smooth layer. A slightly lighter color, this one maybe. create a really smooth layer of color on the paper that is really intense and really full, and you can really blend the colors together. So that's better. That's a really light, soft color. So can use that here in the front as well. And this is already burnishing, like really increasing the pressure on the pencil until we have this really full, intense color. So if you have any questions at any point, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that. So, and the burnishing works really well for sort of realistic, smooth objects. If I would do like an animal or something else that is much more sort of scruffy or with really sort of rough fur, I would probably use different technique. But for something that is really smooth like this is, it works perfect. So you see how the texture here is different from that layer of color pencil here. I'm really increasing the pressure to create that texture. I can actually zoom in a little bit more. So I can really take my time for that. Just one area at a time. Make sure you have a really sharp coloring pencil. If your pencil is blunt, it's much harder to do these little precise areas. So I'm really looking at what shapes do I see there in that reflection, in that dark area. Maybe there's also some light in there. I could add in a darker color, but for now I think this color works quite well. So see, there we go. It already starts to look a little bit more precise. But just slowly carrying on. There's no rush. So, and I had sort of forgotten a little bit about coloring pencil for a while. I didn't really think of coloring pencils as a material that I wanted to use as an illustrator. I thought, well, I have to use oil paints for fine arts and watercolors, and I don't know, I just didn't really think of coloring pencils as a material that I wanted to explore. And then I started to use it again, and I was just blown away with the amount of detail that you could add with it, and I really fell back in love with the material of coloring pencils. And yeah, I've not looked back since. I use them all the time now. So, adding in, these are the colors I'm using at the moment, maybe this slightly lighter one. So, see how I'm using my pencil quite thickly. I put quite a lot of pressure on. To do that burnishing properly, you need to really increase the pressure on your pencil. So, what I also really like about using color pencils is how easy it is to carry them with you. Because when you're traveling or when you're going somewhere, you don't always want to take lots of paint, and paint can leak, and it sort of has its own challenges. The coloring pencil is quite safe to take with you. And yeah, when I'm traveling, I often have a few pencils with me for quick sketches or adding a little bit of color to something. So, there we go, just adding in those colors together. And that smooth blend, that is a little bit easier to achieve with professional grade pencils than it is with children's pencils or students grade pencils. But in theory, you can do it with any type of color pencils. You don't need to have really expensive ones. It's just a little bit easier with the pencils that are softer, I find. So, adding a little bit more shadow here. So I'm really focusing on just the individual shapes of those highlights and those shadows, blending everything together, seeing if I can create something that is really clearly shiny. So if I zoom out a little bit, I instantly feel like you can see that texture shine through a little bit more. So just carrying on, these are the colors that I'm using. I only really need one of these. I can put this dark one away. Don't really need both. So the color here is a bit rounded. I'm not using any burnishing pencils quite yet. This is just my pencil itself. This is a slightly different subject from the things that I usually draw. I draw a lot of animals, but not a lot of balloon animals. I just really wanted to pick something really shiny there, where we can focus on that texture. So adding in some of those lighter blues. You see the edges of this light blue and the dark blue can almost blend in together just by putting a bit of pressure on that pencil. The colors mix up together. Go. So slowly take your time for these colors. This live stream is at a slightly different time from my normal live streams. So if it doesn't get too busy, I will do the next one at a different time again. Just wanted to try it out, and I know a lot of people join in from the States and from other places in the world, and I'm never really sure what the best time is to do these things, even though you have all these analytics and stuff, but sometimes you just don't quite know. So I'm just trying things out. So, and of course, people can always watch live streams back later as well. So. Zoom out a little bit, show you where we are at. I feel like this starts to look a little bit shiny already. Not quite enough, but definitely more than it did before I did the second layer. So, if there's a specific technique that you'd like to know more about, or that you'd like to learn about, make sure you let me know. Because sometimes I don't know what people want to learn from me. And the more you tell me, the easier it is for me to choose subjects and things to teach. Me a different drawing than what I did earlier today. This was my drawing from earlier. So you can see that it's quite different. From today. And slowly carrying on, adding layers of color. So the edges, I want them to be really very sharp, because the balloon is completely sort of perfectly round. There's no dents or other edges there. So I'm really trying to keep that very sharp. So. Seeing if I can really get these edges that are sort of in between the balloon bits, really sort of, there's quite a lot of shadow there. So. There we go. I always find it quite soothing, just these little movements that you get with color pencil drawing. I'm curious to find out what your favorite art materials are. What do you use most? So. These dark shadows. I just wrote a blog post yesterday and I shared it about why I chose my illustration niche and how I found my niche. And I had a lot of positive reactions to it, so it's really fun. So my illustration niche is green illustrations for green businesses, B Corp businesses we call it here in the UK, charities, projects that have a social sort of point of view or mission. Yeah, so really sort of ethical environmental practices. And the reason that is my illustration niche is just because, just really simple, it's because I really love that area of business. And there's a lot of innovation happening in the green space that is quite hard to explain sometimes. And illustrations can really help explain that. So that is something that I do for my illustrations. I try and explain these practices. And I think it's interesting because when people hear you're an illustrator, they often think that you are doing children's book, and I have done a few children's books as well. I think it's a lot of fun. But a children's book usually takes quite long to make and takes quite a long time before you get paid for it. And just overall, they just tend to be quite bulky projects that take a long time and that are a bit slow, and especially if you get paid in commission, it can take quite a long, in royalties, it can take quite a long time before you receive those. And if you don't get paid in royalties, if you only get money up front, then it's usually not quite enough for the amount of time that it takes to make the project. So even though I love the area, it's not really something that you can do on its own. You really need to combine it with other things as well. But yeah, children's book illustration is of course always one of the first areas that people think about. So, but there's so many different areas that you can do as an illustrator. You can be an editorial illustrator where you make illustrations for magazines, and you need to be quite fast when you do that. The turnaround is always really fast, and you need to be good at telling like really complicated things in a really simple way that it's really easy to understand, because usually articles that use a lot of editorial illustrations are for example financial articles, articles that is where it's hard to find good visuals through photos. But also a lot of other magazines use illustrations to make their editorials more fun. So Flow magazine is a big example of that. They have lots and lots of illustrations. If you want to have a look at some beautiful illustrations, I'd really recommend having a look at that magazine, or just follow them on Instagram. It's really fun to see all the art that they're sharing. You get lots of inspiration out of it. So. And another area of illustration is packaging, for example, making patterns and doing pattern design. I have done a few patterns here and there, and I think it's a lot of fun to make. So that is something that I do as well for the right client. Yeah, packaging is always fun. Another type of illustration, which is not so big in the UK, but it is in other areas, is sitting in during court cases and making illustrations during those court sittings. You need to be good at quick portraits, really telling the story of what happened in that case in only a few strokes. I think there'd be a lot of pressure to do that, because you can't take any reference photos, which is in Holland, for example, we're not allowed to take any photos in court, which is why we have illustrators doing the illustrations in court. But it's something that I would struggle with, to be honest, that sort of pressure, I think. It's nice to be able to take a little bit longer and to do things in your own pace. And also, everyone really needs to recognize that suspects, or that, the people in that case, the witnesses or whoever is in the case. I'm going to show you my burnishing pencil, if I find it. I have two. I have a burnishing pencil and a blending one. Though this is actually not a pencil, this is an eraser. But this is my burnishing pencil, and my blending pencil. I'll find it in a moment. I'll start with the burnishing one. And what that does is really blend these colors together. So especially in the lighter areas, see, I can make a really smooth, soft layer with that. So let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. I'm just going to use this pencil to burnish all these smooth edges. Very, very smooth. Blending these colors together and create a really even top layer. And again, you need to put quite a lot of pressure on your pencil. So if you struggle with your wrists, for example, this might not be a technique that you like, that you want to use. But if you're quite happy using a bit of pressure on your pencils, then it works great. I'm going to do the same here. See, even those areas where the color is not so thick, I can really blend it in together and create a really even, smooth layer. I'm using this pencil over the entire drawing, and I do think I will add in a little bit of black here and there for the deepest shadows, or a really dark color, like a dark grey or something. But for now, this is a good way of smoothing everything out. There we go. I think it already starts to look a little bit shiny, doesn't it? Takes a bit of time to do so. I need to also add some shadows to the base. Just quickly. Yeah, that's right. I just saw your message. If you share it on social media, you can tag me in it, and then I'd love to see it. Or if you are a community member, I don't know from the top of my head if you are a member of my creative community. But if you're a community member, you can share it in my homework gallery, and then I can see it there, and other members can see it there as well. You can find that here. Let me quickly. So, there. That is the homework gallery. So, I think it starts to look quite shiny. I'm going to add a few darker colors here and there. So maybe darker blue. Let me try, and otherwise I might add in a black color. This would be a good color. So this is a really dark indigo, really dark blue. I think it might be the darkest blue that I have. So I'm just looking at that picture. Here is really dark. Just adding that in the areas that are really the darkest in the picture. So I'm going to use a white gel pen to add in a few little highlights here and there. So. You can see hopefully that that burnishing really makes a big difference in the look of the drawing. Where you started really sort of light, the more you add these layers, the darker and the smoother it gets. Just looking to find a dark gray color. There we go, just for some shadows on the ground. So. See, there we go, a little bit of shadow on this leg. I'm doing the same here. So. This is not black, I'm using a really dark grey for this, but I guess I could have used black if I used it carefully. I'll leave the texture of the pencil a bit in that shadow, that's okay. So just a few more dark areas, maybe here. I hope that the stream all went okay. I get the impression that there might be quite a bit of delay between what I do and what's in the stream, which is a shame. Some more dark colors here. I can always share this recording again as a proper YouTube video. I do think it is quite a fun drawing to try out if you're new to color pencils and you want to try this technique. This is a perfect drawing to try with quite a high wow factor, I think. So. Maybe a little bit of I think other than a few little highlights, I think I might be finished. So where are my white gel pens? Here. Knocking everything over. So all I'm going to do is just add in a few little marks. Here. Keeping it very simple. So, a few little dots here. I notice there's a bit of a highlight here. All those little highlights that are easy to miss out. So if you don't have a gel pen with your coloring pencils, I would recommend buying one because they're not expensive and it is a really good way of adding in a little bit of detail back. There we go. This is my shiny dog for today. I still think maybe a little bit of light blue here on the inside. So just making that white space a little bit softer. So there we go. Well, I really hope you enjoyed it. It looks like there's quite a bit of a delay on the YouTube video, so hopefully that's not too bad. I'm going to check it after I've logged off. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. If you're joining in at any point, you can share your artwork with me on social media at Making Some Musings, or share it in my Making Some Musings community if you're a community member. I always love seeing what people make. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you find this useful. If you have any questions, let me know and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.